Well, thank you all for joining us tonight on this beautiful evening. It's actually a very nice evening. It's not cold, it's not too hot, it's nice and crispy. I know I'm from Canada and I like cold weather, but this is like nice and crispy, so it's nice weather. All right, so we are up to page 144 in the Art Scroll Chumash and Parshas Vayetze, right? So the end of last week's Torah portion was mentioned, and we read in the Torah, right? Yitzchak and Rivka tell Yaakov to go to her brother to find a shidduch, right? To find the match, and that's how it ends in the end of last week's Torah portion. Right, and this week's Torah portion it says Vayetze Yaakov, and Yaakov went out. Right, Vayetze in modern Hebrew, how do you say exit? Anybody know? Yitziah, right? Yitziah, right? Yitziah is in modern Hebrew how you say exit. So Vayetze Yaakov, Yaakov went out. Be'er Sheva, from Be'er Sheva, Vayelech Harana, and he went to Haran, right? He went to the city of Haran where Rivka and Yaakov in last week's Torah portion told him to go. That's where her brother Lavan lived. That's where she grew up, right? He's going to visit, he's going for the first time to meet, probably the first time to meet his uncle, right? And go and see if he has any daughters that he could marry. I guess marrying the cousins. I guess it's already in our Jewish gene to, in Europe, it was done often. It's frowned upon now. Not necessarily frowned upon, but my great grandparents were cousins. I'm sure we all have somewhere up in our lines that family was cousins. So that's how this week's Torah portion starts. The commentaries ask that it's a little redundant. Vayetze means he went out, right? So he went from Beersheba and he went to Haran. Why couldn't it just say Vayetze Yaakov? Beersheba lecharana, to Haran, right? It could have said to Haran. It could have said, right? It could have said Vayelech Harana. Yaakov went to Haran. We know from the end of last week's Torah portion that Yaakov is in Beersheba because that's where he got the blessings. That's where he were the two was. And you have to go. If you go somewhere, you have to leave that place. Right? So why does it have to say Vayetze Vayelech? Why does it have to say that he went out and then he went there? Right? It could have just said, if you want to say that he went, Vayetze Yaakov l'Charan, Yaakov went to Haran. Why does it have to say from Beersheba? Right? And why does it have to say that he went to Haran? It could have, sort of compressed, right? It could have compressed the pasuk a little bit. It could have made less words in this pasuk. We asked a similar question last week regarding the beginning of the Torah by Yitzchak, right? Yitzchak ben Avram, right? That whole thing. So this week also we're going to ask, why does the Torah elaborate on this verse by saying Vayetze and then he went out and saying where he went out from? We know where he went out from. And why does it say again Vayelech and he went to that place? If he went out from somewhere, of course he's going somewhere, right? You can't go out from somewhere and not go somewhere. Right, okay, so it's saying to Haran. So as it said, Vayelech Haran, he went to Haran. What's the Torah trying to tell us? So there's many, the commentaries expand on this various different ideas, but famous idea is Rashi, and it's an important idea to remember. The Vayetze Yaakov, of course, could have just said Yaakov Yelech Harana. Yaakov is going to Haran, right? Could have just said Yaakov Yelech Harana, and he went to Haran, right? And then it tells us what happened on the journey that he was going there. Why does the Torah tell us Vayetze Yaakov Beersheba? It has to go say Yaakov left Beersheba. And Rashi famously says, right, because when someone, a tzaddik, right, leaves somewhere, right, it makes a roshem, it makes an impression on the place. The schus, the spiritual energy that the tzaddik had, that the righteous person had in that place, right, when the tzaddik leaves, it should be felt that the tzaddik left, right? It should be felt. So it wasn't just Vayetze, it wasn't just that Yaakov was going to Haran, right, to go and get married, but he was also it was felt that Vayetze Yaakov, the Yaakov left. It was felt that he was left. His presence, his education, the teaching, his just the essence of him being in town, right, was felt. And on a deeper level, right. The Talmud tells us, and the Kabbalists expand on this a little bit, and the commentaries expand on this, is that the merit of a tzaddik, the merit of a righteous person, is a protection for the city. Right? There's a spiritual protection that, when you have a righteous person living in your city, that it's less likely, or for something bad to happen in that city. They say the story And they don't say this about me and you. I mean, maybe about you, but not about me, right? But there was a great beginning of World War II. So in 1939, 1940, right? So when Russia took over Lithuania, right? It was a miracle because really it was, even though Russia took over Lithuania, divided it, but Russia allowed Lithuania to be its sort of own independent country, right, at the time, right? And during that time, when they allowed them to be in its own independent country, a lot of the yeshivot, right, went there and fled. A lot of people fled there, but a lot of the yeshivot fled there because it was sort of an independent. It was in Russia, but it was in Germany, and actually from there, a lot of people were able to escape. The Mir Yeshiva escaped with the whole yeshiva. Over 400, 500 people escaped through there, and many others. It was sort of God sort of created. Hashem made a sort of a utopia. Still, it wasn't America, right? But it was still like a utopia within that time frame. It was like maybe a year. I don't remember exactly. I have to look up I have to look it up how long it was. But the commentaries say that there was the commentaries. It's known. And the rabbis at the time told us there was a great rabbi that lived in Vilna, right, Lithuania at the time. Rav Chaim Ozer. Rav Chaim Ozer was the biggest rabbi of the time, right? He was known biggest rabbi of the time, and he lived in Vilna, right? At the time, he was the chief rabbi of the world. People send him letters of questions from all over the world, literally. Right? And Rav Chaim Ozer passed away, right, in 1940. Right, 1940, he passed away, and it is unbelievable. And I should have looked at it before. I just thought of it now, but it's unbelievable. Literally, maybe a few months or even less than that after he passed away, right? Russia sort of took over as communist. It completely got rid of Lithuania, right? And then it was hard for the Jews again, right? And then Germany invaded. And all the rabbis at the time said that Rav Chaim Ozer was sort of keeping that spiritual force field, right, spiritual protection of that area to allow, right, people to go through and whatever it is. And then when he passed away, right, sort of that spiritual energy that was protecting the place was gone. And then the Russians were able to take over, and the Germans were able to come, right? So there is this idea. We have to be so careful and so aware that we should be living around people that are righteous and ensure that they stay in town, ensure that they're comfortable, because it's not only we benefiting spiritually from them, but there's also a physical thing that we're gaining by being around and having big rabbis, spiritual people around in our community. So that's what the Torah is telling us. Vayetze Yaakov in Beersheba. Yaakov left Beersheba. Everybody felt Yaakov's Yitzia. Everybody felt Yaakov's exodus from Beersheba, right, because of his righteousness. And that's one idea that I want to talk about from this week's Parsha, this verse, and I think it's something important for us to be aware of. And then it says, so the verse continues, Vayifka b'makom, right, he sort of he encountered the place. Vayolan Sham, and he slept there. Right? Kiva Hashem is because the sun came. Vayikach ma'avnei hamakom, he took from the stones of the place. Vayasem rasa, he put it around his head, and he went to sleep. Right? He went to sleep in that place. So this is a very interesting verse. Like what it's telling me, and he lit a bonfire and he opened up a can of beans, right? And he, like what's the Torah is telling us? Like it's going into, into detail of like what he did. And then some of the words also don't really fit. Vayifka b'makom, he encountered the place. He was traveling with it. Maybe he didn't have, Google Maps, he didn't have Waze, right? So he didn't know that, the place was 20 miles ahead or 5 miles ahead, but what do you mean he counted the place? He knew where he was going. He was traveling, right? He was on a road, and he knew that this place is going to be, Har Maria. That's where it was. And it was going to be in a few miles. What does it mean he encountered the place? So let's just answer that right now. The commentaries say that God made a miracle, and he sort of, it was getting dark and he wanted him to stay. God made a miracle that he sort of put the whole Israel into that place. So he had Pizza Sadach, he had speedy. He was able to get there quicker, right? So that's what means he counted it. He wasn't expecting to be there for a little while, right? So he encountered it. That's what the comment. There's other commentaries, right, that speak about this, right? But that's not what I want to elaborate on. What I do want to elaborate on is that it says, Vayalan, where am I? Vayalan Sham, he slept there. Kiva Hashem is going to say the sun came. All right, so first, what does it mean, Kiva Hashem, as the sun came? So the commentary, the Talmud tells us that God made the sun set early that day because God wanted him to sleep in that place. So God made the sun set early. It was made up in a different place. That's again it's an interesting fact, right, to know, right? There's very interesting things that are talked about regarding this point that the sun set early. But I want to talk about is, what does it mean Vayalan Sham, and he slept there? I mean, okay, so he slept there. Like, well, what's the big deal? All right, that he slept there, right? And then it says, and he slept in that place, right? He rested there, and he slept in that place. If he rested there and it was dark time, so of course that's where he slept. What's it trying to tell me that he slept in that place? Like, well, what is he? So he was there, and then to say, and he had a chalam, and he had a dream. Why is the Torah going and emphasizing that Yaakov slept there? So Rashi famously quotes in the famous Midrash, the Talmud, that says that because for the last 14 years, Yaakov was learning in yeshiva, right? He was learning in yeshiva Shem ve'Aver, right? I remember Rivka went to Aver to ask God about what was going on in his stomach last week, right? So there was yeshiva, and Yaakov went to learn in yeshiva Shem ve'Aver. And he was learning there for 14 years. And for 14 years, Yaakov did not put down his head on a pillow. Right? He might have, like learning, right, and conked out maybe a little bit, right? But he did not go and, he did not lie down in a bed and go to sleep. He was so immersed in his learning, so immersed in his Torah learning that he made sure that he didn't go into bed. And therefore, the Torah is telling us, he slept in that place. Means to say, in that place was the first time that he slept for 14 years. That's what the Torah is telling us. All right, that for the last 14 years, he didn't sleep. How do we know it's 14 years? There's a whole mathematical equation the Talmud tells us based off certain things of his age and this and that, and I'm not getting into that right now. We don't have time for that, right? But that's how we know it's 14 years. Right? But Yaakov went to learn for 14 years. So the question is, why did Yaakov need to go and learn, right, for 14 years? Like, he was learning. He was no youngster, don't forget, right? He was 40 years old. Right, when he left, he was almost 40 years old. Right, when he left his father's house, and what do you think he was doing there? Twiddling his thumb? No, he was learning with his father. Yaakov Yosef Olim. Right, Yaakov was sitting in the tents. He was learning Torah with his father. So, now his parents tell him to go and find a wife. So I guess he wasn't ready yet. So, he had a stall tactic. Oh, no, I'm still learning Torah. I'm still learning. I'm not ready to marry yet, right? I need another 14 years. Of course not. Like, what was the idea, right, of Yaakov going ahead and learning, right, for another 14 years? And the commentaries tell us something very powerful. And that Yaakov is teaching us, right, with this idea, right, that whenever you're going out to do something, going out into the big bad world, Yaakov knew. He knew it wasn't going to be a simple thing. He's leaving his parents' house. He's leaving the comfort of his parents' house, right? And he was going out into the big bad world. He was going out there. He needed to do something that was his own spiritual gain, right? Till now, he was in his parents, his father and his mother's embrace. And yet he was learning. Of course, he was learning. He was with his parents. He had Rivka, and he had Yitzchak, and they were teaching him, and he was with them the whole time. But he knew that he had to do something that would be his own spiritual growth. Right? It would be his own thing. He said, before I go to Lavan's house, maybe a prophecy knew it was going to be longer. Maybe he didn't realize it was going to be so long. Whatever it is, right? He said, I need to do something that's going to be my own learning. It's going to be my kinyan, me acquiring this and defining myself with who I am. And so therefore, he went to another yeshiva and he learned for 14 years, right? Because he needed to say, this is me. It's not just me because of my parents, which is nothing wrong with that, but this is me because this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to protect myself from the big bad world. And this is something similar that we have. The Code of Jewish Law tells us that the Code of Jewish Law tells us how one is supposed to start their day, right? How you're supposed to start your day, right? You wake up, you wash Nagavasser, right? You say Moda'ani, you say blessings, right? You go daven, right? If you're a man, if you're a woman, you should daven at home, right? You could go down to shul, but I don't know why you want to. But okay, but you go daven, right? And then it says that one should learn something. Should go learn something, and then only after you learn something, then you go to work. Because every day, before we go out to the big bad world out there, before we go out to work or whatever it is we're doing, right, school or whatever it is that we're doing, we should learn something in the morning. We should infuse ourselves with spirituality to say that we remember that this is the most important thing. How are we going to survive the world out there? There's so much negative influence out there, right? There's so much impurity out there. How are we going to survive that? I'm going to survive that by ensuring that we start our day before we go out there, we learn something. We daven and we learn something. So similar idea, Yaakov said that before I go to Lavan, right, he needed more than just a few minutes. He needed 14 years, right? But he went and said, I'm going to go and I'm going to learn something. So that's an important lesson that we learn to our daily life, right? That we have to, before we go out there, before we go into the workforce, before we go to school or whatever it is that we're doing, ensure that we learn something with daven and we learn something that day. That will be a protection to make sure that we don't get too influenced by the surroundings that are around us. Any questions or comments before we move on? Okay. Okay, so let's move on to verse Hazayin, right? That's page 147. All right, so we're just going to sort of very quickly. So he went to sleep and he had a dream, and he saw a ladder people going up, angels going up and down. Very quickly, the commentaries say that that's referring to the exiles, the different exiles that we're going to have. Why a ladder, right? A ladder represents growth, right? Or God forbid, the lack of growth, right? Not steps, because ladders you can't jump on a ladder. You got to take one step at a time, right? Again, there's much more to talk about that, but not this year, right? And then God talks to him and says that if you're going to follow my ways, right, then you'll be okay. And Vayikatz Yaakov, right, 146, verse 16. And Yaakov wakes up. Vayikatz Yaakov is not so. Yaakov wakes up from his sleep. But Yomer, he says, Achen yesh Hashem b'makom hazeh. Whoa, there's God in this place. V'anochi lo yadati, and I didn't know, right? So someone actually I was learning with last night, right, asked me this question, but it's a famous question that commentaries ask, right? Again, who are we talking about? We're talking about Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov Avinu, who grew up in Yitzchak's house, who was alive when Avram was alive, also, right? He was almost 13. He was 13 years old when Avram passed away. He saw angels walking around the house. He knew what a spiritual place was. Right? Yaakov Avinu didn't realize that this was a place of Hara Moriah, where his father was brought as a sacrifice, where God created the world from, where the Temple Mount's going to be. And what Anochi lo yadati. I didn't realize it was a spiritual place. He didn't feel the energy. He didn't know that this was Hara Moriah. What's going on over here? What's Yaakov saying that I didn't realize, right? But and then it goes and he says, right? It just seems very strange that Yaakov will not know, right, that this is a spiritual place, right? That whoa, there's God presence here, and I didn't know. It seems a little strange. So one idea that's brought down, and this is a very powerful idea, the commentaries explain that, and I don't remember where I saw this from, right? And that's why I'm not saying a name. I don't remember where I saw this from. That of course Yaakov knew what this was. Of course he knew what it was. And we've talked about this idea in a different aspect, a different time. But those could bring it in different ways. It's an important idea. But even in spirituality, there's something called hergel, being accustomed to something. And when you're accustomed to something, you lose a little of that sensitivity, right, of what you become accustomed to, both for good or, God forbid, for bad. The example I like to give, right, is for this to sort of make it more more understandable to understand, is my Rosh Hashiva of blessed memory of Chaim Epstein, right? Great rabbi, right? He was a great rabbi. He was a student of Rav Aaron Kotler, one of the he started the yeshiva movement in America, right? He was really great. And anytime I thought, oh, you learned Rav Chaim Epstein, wow, like. But I was very close with him, right? I was very close with him, and I used to go to his office. We used to talk and learning. I went to his house a few times. I drove him. I used to drive him around if he needed something, and other people also, right? And in no way I'm trying to say that I didn't have the highest level of respect for him. Of course I did, but that sort of that oddness, right, that people have, you lose it, because I was with him all the time. Like I hung out with him, he also married us, and I was at his house, and I drove him, and and I hung around. I saw him drinking, and I saw coffee, and I saw him eating. Like I saw him being, a regular person, right? Even though he was way above what is a regular person, right? And you find this with a lot of things. When you see a rabbi, our rabbis are this, right? We sort of lose our sensitivity, right? Because we sort of were hanging out with them, and we're and it's good to a certain degree to have that friendship, but at the same time, right, it depends on the level of the rabbi, right? We have to make sure that we have that awe, that respect, that we have to be careful about that. And that's what on Yaakov's level, of course, right? We're talking about on Yaakov's level. We're not talking about on me and you level. On Yaakov's level, and God and the Torah always magnifies everything for us to be able to learn from that, right? That's what Torah always does. Right? But on Yaakov's level, right, it's saying that Yaakov, yes, because he was so attuned to spirituality, because he saw angels walking around in his father's house and his grandfather's house, right? Because of that, so when he came to this place, he felt some spirituality, but okay, there's another place that has spirituality. But then when he woke up, because he had the whole dream, he said, Zeshar Shemayim, this is the gate to heaven. Right? So of course, it's even a much higher level, and I can't believe that I slept in this place and I didn't have the right level of kavana, right level of respect for this place, right? And again, we're talking about a Yaakov's level, right? So it's just, but for us, for what do we take out of this? We're not holding on Yaakov's level. For us, we have to remind ourselves that we get accustomed to things. We're hanging around rabbis, or even our prayer or synagogue, or the back of the synagogue is also our social hall, but the front is not. So we sort of lose our sensitivity of spirituality. We lose our sensitivity of respect. We lose our. And we're not saying we're not being respectful. We lose our sensitivity. We always have to remind ourselves, no, we have to stop and focus. This is a Beit Midrash, right? This is a Beit Knesset, right? This is a Torah Zah. We should not be talking, right? This is, this rabbi, he wants me to, be friendly with him, and I'm so appreciative of that, but still have to be careful how, how we talk around, and, and how we do things. I've had it a few times, and people say, and I'm not talking myself in the sense of I'm not greater, bigger, and better rabbis than me, right? But I've had, and it's a sign. So, I go to somewhere, whatever. I was learning with their kid, and the lady forgot, and she was wearing pants and a sleeveless shirt. And she said, "Oh my gosh, Rabbi, I'm so sorry, I forgot." And she runs to her room, and she changes, which is. I don't know. I was learning with a kid in the kitchen, but it's good to have that sensitivity. It's important that you're around other people. Show respect, right? Show that level of respect. It was on the contrary, right? That was good, because other people have plenty of times where nothing. They probably know whatever, but they don't think about it, right? Because they're not even thinking about it. And this is different examples, right? And we all have to reflect internally and say, how am I? Right, regarding this point, am I being sensitive to this? Am I not being sensitive to this? Right? Have I become, accustomed to just, yeah, of course it's a shul, of course it's the rabbi, of course it's a mitzvah, right? Even mitzvahs, right? Yeah, of course, it's tzedakah, of course, whatever. But no, to have that enthusiasm, I'm giving tzedakah, to have that enthusiasm, we're lighting our Friday night candles, to have that enthusiasm that I'm putting on tefillin, to have that excitement, to have that, that's the same thing also. It's so respect. It's not losing that sensitivity to the mitzvah, right, that one might lose. Okay, any questions or comments on this? Okay, let's move on. Okay, so we're going to jump again a little bit because this is really a massive parsha, and we don't have time to go through the whole parsha, right? Then it says that Yaakov makes a pact with God, right? And the verse 20, right? The verse 20 it says that Yaakov says that he makes a pact with God, right? That if you can watch my way, right? That I'm going. You'll give me food. You'll give me food to eat. But what? Lachem, you give me bread to eat, right? V'beged lobos, in clothing, right, to wear, right? And you'll save me lobos. And I return peace to my house, and then he makes, and I'll bring a sacrifice when I come back. Right? So the commentaries want to know, lachem la'ochel. Bread to eat. Let's say you take care of me. You give me food, right? You give me steak, right? You give me, okay, give me brisket, give me clothing, like you give me Ralph Lauren. I don't know. My kids are gonna laugh at this, but I don't know. Right? They tell me all the time, right? Daddy, you don't know what you're talking about. I said, okay, that's true. I don't know what I'm talking about. Right? That's true. Right? But whatever it is, no duh, bread to eat and clothes to wear, right? But lechem, like just say, you give me food and you give me clothing, you take care of me. What's he trying to bring out? So there's two different approaches. I mean, there's a few, but two different approaches that are both important to reflect on. One is the Seporna. The Seporna says something very interesting. He says that Yaakov was saying, right, that make sure that, right, so that the poverty will not cause me to act against my own sense of priorities to Hashem. Make sure that I don't have a proper. I'm not poor. At least I have bread to eat and clothing to wear, right? It's sort of a statement to make sure that, because God, please don't test me, right, with the sayom, with the test of being poor, of not being able to feed my family, not being able to provide for myself. That please don't test me on that right now. I'm going on a road. It's hard. I'm going away. I'm going for first time away from my family, right? Please don't test me on that, right? Because it's a difficult test, and please give me at least bread to eat and clothing on my back. The Radak says the other way around. He says no. He said Yaakov is telling God, please, I don't need too much. All I need is bread to eat and clothing on my back. I don't need too much, right? I just need the basic necessities, right? All I'm asking is for the basic necessities. I don't need too much, and the righteous people don't want to indulge in the materialistic world. And when I saw these two explanations, I think that the two are really two sides of a coin. On one hand, right, we shouldn't be involved in the materialistic world, right? Of course, we're able to enjoy it. God wants us to. We make shechianu when we buy a new thing, and we should enjoy Shabbat and things like that. But we shouldn't be seeped in it. We should be happy if we have bread to eat and clothing to wear. If we're able to have a steak, that's fine. Also, but it shouldn't be like, oh, I need the steak, and my whole life's revolved around the steak, and I can't believe I don't have a steak, and I can't believe I don't have the fanciest car, and I have the fanciest thing. We shouldn't be seeped into it, and not only that, it shouldn't affect me. It shouldn't be that I have to give up on my spirituality just in order to have more than bread to eat and clothing on my back. And of course, it's a metaphor, right? I shouldn't be, God, please make sure that I'm able to withstand the temptations of the materialistic world that's out there. He's going out into the world, going to Lavan, who cared only about money. We'll talk about that, right? So please help me, ensure that I don't fall to the temptations, right? That I'll compromise my spirituality. I'll compromise Shabbat. I'll compromise kosher. It's too expensive kosher. And if I buy kosher, then I can't, go on my vacation. Right, and if I send my kids to Jewish day school, it's more expensive. So then we can't go on our trip to Hawaii, right? Whatever it is, right? We shouldn't allow, right, or not even that, whatever it is, we shouldn't allow the comforts to interfere with our spiritual growth, right? All I need is lechem. If you give me a little more, of course I'm going to enjoy more. Right? The flip side is, but at the same time, also we have to pray that we have something to eat. Right? We don't want to be in poverty. We want to be able to make parnasah. We want to be able to have food on our table. We want to be able to have clothing on our back. So I believe that these two are really two sides of a coin of how we have to be in the middle ground. We can't be saying that I don't need anything. All I need is my relationship with God. God, whatever you give me. No, we should be asking for parnasah. We should be asking to be able to put food on our table. We should be asking to be able to have enough money to send our kids to Tuesday school. We should be asking that we could give tzedakah. We should be asking that we could keep Shabbat and things like that. And we should have enough. At the same time, we're also asking that our desire, we have to keep in line. We have to stay in the middle of the road. We shouldn't have the desire. We need to compromise our spirituality, and because we need to be involved in the materialistic world. And that's sort of the balance that these two explanations, I believe, are two sides of the coin that Yaakov was telling us, and is an important middle of the ground, middle of the road that we have to instill in our lives. Right? We have to instill this in our lives. We have to make sure that we're not seeped in our materialistic needs, that we are compromising our spirituality, right? Whatever that may be, whatever level, wherever we're holding, right? We still could say that, well, I need to compromise on my spirituality because I need to buy this, or I need a new car. You have a car that runs, yeah, but it's a 1995, like it's a 1995. Yeah, it runs, but, I'm not saying not to buy a new car. Of course, you need to, but if that would say, well, I need to work on Shabbat to be able to, so then that could be a problem, right? Or the trip to Hawaii, right? Wherever one's holding, right? We have to make sure that we don't compromise that. But at the same time, we also have to make sure that we have food on our table. We have to make sure that we have, and we should ask God to make sure that we have the necessities that we need. And that's sort of the middle of the road that Yaakov is teaching us. Okay, let's move on. So the verse says, where am I? Okay, we're going to jump to chapter 29. Right, so it says that Yaakov, Vayetze Yaakov, Raglav Yaakov picked up his feet, and he goes to Kedem, right? And behold, he's at a well again, right? As we mentioned before, right? All good Jewish, engagements happen at a well, right? Eliezer found Rivka there. Yaakov found Rachel and Leah. Moshe Rabbeinu found, right, Zipporah at the well, right? David HaMelech. Not necessarily, but it's just interesting that the well sort of has been a very important factor in the shidduch of our of some of our great leaders and forefathers. Right, but so he's at the well, and it's a very interesting story. Just going to sort of give a very quick overview of the story, just to get to the point we're trying to get to. Right, and it says we're on page 148 now. Right, and he sees that there's this big stone on the well. Right, and all the shepherds are hanging around. Right, and they're waiting for all the shepherds to come in order to be able to roll the stone off the well. Right, and so he asked them, "Where are you guys from?" He said, "We're from Haran." He said, "Oh, okay, good. I guess he didn't have Google Maps. He didn't know he was in Haran." Right, right. So they said, okay, good. He said, do you guys know my brothers? Do you guys know my Nachar, Lavan ben Nachar? And do you know him? It's just schmoozing. He's at the well. What else do you do at the well while you're waiting around? Let's do some Jewish geography, right? So he says, do you know he said, Yadanu, we know him. Right? So the commentary said they were sort of very callous about it. Everybody knew that Lavan was a swindler. Yeah, we know him. Yeah, whatever. I don't want to get too involved in that. Right? But y'all have shalom. Hello, is it peace to him? You have shalom. V'hinei Rachel bito ba matzah. Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the cattle. Right? Vayomer hein od hayom gadol. Right? The day's still great. Lo od osef hamikna hashkuat tzon l'churou. And the day's still great. It's still a long day, and you guys haven't gave your cattle to drink yet, and you can't go out into the fields to graze. Like, what are you guys doing over here? Is this lazying around, right? And they said, "Lo nucha, we can't until we gather everybody, because the heaven is big, is strong, right? Then we have to need everybody to roll it off, right?" So Adenu with Daber, they're talking, and Rachel comes with the cattle, right? Ashelavia, he was a shepherd, right? He was a shepherd. When Yaakov saw, right, this Rachel, the daughter of Lavan, the brother of his mother, right, with the thing, right? Yaakov sort of got super strength, right? Your typical sort of like love story, right? This is like a classic, right? Oh wow, oh, and he gets the super energy and he rolls the stone off the and he gives Rachel's cattle to drink. Yaskas its own love and iman. He gives the thing, and then it continues. So this is again very interesting, right? There's a lot to talk about this. We don't have all day. Sorry, I apologize. Right, and that's why it's good we have next year. Right, but what I want to talk about is something very interesting. Samson Hirsch says, and this is the first year I saw this idea this year. I've seen different ideas for this, but I saw this year. Samson Hirsch says it's very interesting. Why did they put the rock on the bear in the first place? Why did they put the stone on the well in the first place? Why did they do that? And why they put such a big rock? Like, why can't they just put like a flat thing and everybody could lift it up? And I don't know. If they didn't want flies to fall in, I don't know. They could have like lift something up and then you put it back down. Like it's not why they put such a big rock that they needed everybody to come and to roll it off. It says of Samson Falhurst that there's a tremendous lesson to learn from it. And then Yaakov sees it and he rolls it off. He sees Rachel, he rolls it off, and he's able to do it by himself. It says of Samson Falhurst because the people of Gerar did not trust each other. They didn't have unity. They were not united. They were each one by themselves. Yeah, Yadanu, we know him. We're not whatever. That's Rachel. Yeah, like they were very callous in their conversation. They were not united. They were individuals. And therefore they all didn't trust each other. So they wanted on purpose to make sure that there was something on there. And that's what you're united about. You're united about that they don't trust each other. That was what they were united about, right? And therefore, that's why they put a stone on there that they no, you can't take without me. Maybe you're going to take more. Maybe there won't be enough water. I'm going to come later. And therefore, no, and we all have to come at the same time, and we all have to roll it off together. That's the only way we could drink. It says, but Yaakov, right? Yaakov, when it says Yaakov saw Rachel, right? He was able to roll the stone off. Yes, it could be that he was more stronger. And we have midrashim that says that the tribes were super strong, right? They had certain super strength to them. And it could be that's based off their high level of spirituality, as we mentioned before, that really governs our body. That's the spiritual. But leave that alone. What the Torah is telling us, why does the Torah have to tell us that Yaakov rolled it off? Like, okay, so if he did, he did. We're like, what's the Torah telling us? What it's telling us, we saw Rachel, right? Rachel is the one that gave up, as we're not going to have time to talk about this, we're going to talk about it now, right? Later on, right, when Yaakov wants to marry Rachel, right? And Lavan swindles Yaakov and gives him Leah, right? And but Yaakov knew who Lavan was. He was no dummy, right? And he gave Rachel a secret code, right? Like a secret code to make sure, because it was dark and they didn't have fluorescence, and the wedding was at night and had a veil, so he wouldn't be able to see her until after they go to they go back to their room, right? So he gave her a code, and Rachel didn't want her sister to be embarrassed. Rachel was so giving to someone else, right, that she gave her sister the code that her sister shouldn't be embarrassed and willing to give up for herself. Loser, she didn't know that Yaakov was going to want to work another 7 years for her, right? But she was willing to give up for herself, for someone else. So Yaakov saw that energy in Rachel, the energy of caring about other people, the energy of willing to give up for yourself, for someone else, that he got that inner strength. He said the rock sort of rolled off. This whole energy of the rock of separation, of the other Adorim, the other shepherds, each one being separated by themselves and each one not caring about the other one, right? That whole energy that was sort of holding the rock down, Yaakov was able just to push it off when he saw Rachel, because she was the epitome of caring about other people, right? She was the epitome of thinking about someone else and not caring if she's going to lose out. Okay, so it might not be enough water for me. And okay, so I might not be able to marry Yaakov. And so that's what the Torah is trying to teach us. It's not a love story, like unfortunately some people say, right? That's not what the Torah is trying to teach us, right? And as we said, the Torah is not a history book either, right? The Torah is trying to teach us this important lesson that the difference of the people in Gerar, the shepherds of Gerar, and Rachel and the energy that Yaakov fed off from Rachel, right? That's what allowed him to push off the rock, right? And that's a tremendous lesson that we learn from here. And we are the descendants of Yaakov and Rachel, right? And Leah, of course, also, right? And we have to remind ourselves that we have to be giving people, we have to be thinking about other people, even if we might lose out a little bit from it, right? Even if we, of course, we're not allowed to hurt ourselves, right? But we have to, okay, so, the Talmud has stories of people giving tzedakah, even though, they had enough for, food for the next 2 weeks, right? And they gave someone food and they only had enough for the week. So, okay, well, worry about it in a week if our food right now. But this person doesn't have food right now, right? So we have to give them food right now. That's that attitude of course, you're not allowed to hurt yourself, but you know what? We'll worry about it in a week from now, 2 weeks from now, in a month from now. Right? Okay, we're going to take a little bit out of our savings to help this institution or to help this person or to help someone get married or whatever it is. Okay, so, in 10 years from now, you never know. Business will get better and, we can put that back in, or stocks go up and stocks go down. Right? Actually, I had someone once told me, he said right before one of the crashes, I don't remember which one it was, he said there was a tremendous need for one of the schools, and him and his wife decided they were going to take out their stocks, right, and donate, and actually they lend it. They lent it interest free for a few years. That's what the idea. They cut off some of the loan at the end, but they lent the money for a significant amount. And he said it was the best investment I ever did, right? Because if I would have kept it in the stocks if I would have kept it in my stocks for like another half a year, so I would have lost all that money, right? I said I would have lost all the money. And we were all concerned, right? This and it could go up, and it's our investment, it's our retirement plan, of this and that. And on the contrary, it was the best investment we ever made. Now, of course, there's stories this or stories that way, but that's the attitude that we have to be. If we have something, I say, okay, so you worry about it later. Of course, we're not talking about, to harm yourself or not to be able to put food on the table, not to be able to pay your bills, but to be able to help someone out, to help an institution out, even if it's a loan or a donation, if it's something that you're not, or individuals where it's down the line, we have to change our mentality and say, you know what, I'm going to help. And then God will help me. When I get it back, I'll reinvest this, that. I'm not completely, my business will get better. We have to help. We have to help individuals. We have to be thinking about other people. That's who we're talking about. That's Rachel, and that's what the Torah is trying to teach us over here. Okay, we're going to skip a little bit, right? Just one thing. If you go down to the verse 13, right? Go down to verse 13. So it says over there that Vayikashama Lavan, when Lavan heard that his nephew Yaakov came, Vayaratz, he runs, right? Lakrasi, he runs to him, Vayichabiklo, and he kisses him. He hugs him, Vanishaklo, and he kisses him, right? Veveo Beser brings him to his house. Now, we didn't find this by Eliezer, right? All of a sudden, only Eliezer, after he saw the thing, so the conversation, because again, this is Lavan. He thought, oh my gosh, when the servant came, he came with like gold things and rings and this and that. Imagine, right, the son himself, what is he going to bring, right? So actually Yaakov the Midrash tells us that Yaakov came with a lot of things, but his brother, his nephew, Eliphaz, right, actually his great nephew, Eliphaz, right, Esav sent Eliphaz to go and kill him. And remember, Esav wanted to kill him. Right, he literally meant it. Right, and Eliphaz told his uncle, said, "I don't want to kill you, but I have to keep it of aim. I have to honor my father. Like I don't want to kill you. Right, you're my good uncle. Like I like you. Right." So Yaakov told him, right, that ani chashiv kames, a poor person is considered like a dead person. Right, there's three. The Talmud tells us there are three people that are considered like a dead person. Right, one of them is an ani. One of them is a poor person, someone that has no possessions. He said, take all my possessions, and I will be halakhically considered in the concept of like a metz. I have no possessions. So you sort of could say you could fulfill your obligation, right, to your father, keep it away, but at the same time, you didn't kill me either. But Yaakov didn't have anything, right? But Lavan ran because he wanted to say, no, I want from you, right? Lavan was a person that was completely engaged in the materialistic world. He did anything and everything, right? To be able to live and be a materialistic person. That was Lavan to the end. So we'll go quickly through this, right? Again, we don't have time to go, there's so much to talk about over here, right? This parsha is jam-packed. So he says, I want to marry Rachel. He said, okay, so you don't have any money, so you have to work for me, right? So work for me for 7 years, right? So he worked for Yaakov, for Lavan for 7 years, and then the wedding happened, and that's how we know Lavan switched them out, right? And he gave her Leah, right? And not Rachel, right? And Rachel, as we know, we just said, gave her the special code, right, that he shouldn't get. So Yaakov says, right? V'hiba boker is the morning. V'hine, the bottom of page 150. It was the morning. V'hine he Leah v'yomer Lavan. He told Lavan, Mazah Sisali, what did you do for me? Right? Hello, Rachel Avadi. I worked for Rachel. So why did you cheat me? Right? What are you doing? Like, hello, you're my father-in-law. You're my uncle. Like, why are you cheating me? So if you turn the page, this is a very powerful verse and something that we have to really reflect on and think about. Vayomer Lavan said, we don't do this in our place. To have the younger one marry before the older one. We don't do it that's not what's done here. Right? So of course I had to. Right? Work with me for another 7 years and I'll give you Rachel. Right? So the commentaries ask, all of a sudden Lavan's becoming the big tzaddik over here. No, this is not respectful. It's not the right thing to do. Right? We don't give. Really? Either you could marry the young one before the old one. What about Leah's feelings? What about our minhag, our custom? Right? Really? So when I asked you for Rachel in the first place, why did you say that? Why did you say that? And very nice that that's the custom, that's the right thing to do. But you lied and you made a contract and I worked for you for Rachel. Lavan is a person that coats himself, right, with being the right person. Oh, he talks big, right? That's Lavan. Lavan is called white. He tricks you, right? He pretends to be righteous. He pretends to be the advocate for other people's feeling, pretends to be the advocate of our customs, pretends to be the advocate of what's right and what's wrong. But he is the biggest swindler, right? And the biggest the big person that is seeping in, needing his materialism and treating other people, but he coats it and dresses it up with pretending to be a good person and it's saying, oh, no, it's not right and right this. And that's Lavan. And I'm sure we all know people like this, right? I mean, if we think about it, we all know certain people like this, right? But it's important that we ourselves remind ourselves about this all the time because we do this, thank God, not to the level of Lavan, but we do this also. We trick ourselves. And we trick ourselves and we say that we're not doing this because of that, and we can't go to shul because of this, and we can't go to class because of that, and we can't take on the next level of our spirituality because of this, and we sort of code it with all these nice gestures of family and the right thing and not hurting other people's feeling. And there was someone we know that she thought she was Jewish her whole life, right? I mean, someone I know growing up from Toronto, she thought she was Jewish her whole life, right? And she realized that our Pesach Seder, I think I might have mentioned this once, she realized that our Pesach Seder that she wasn't Jewish, right? Because we were talking about large families, and she said, "Oh, my mother is one of 13." She said, "Oh, my mother asked her, was your mother from a religious family, right?" She said, "Oh no, my mother was Catholic, but she converted to marry my father. Her father happens to be a Cohen, which you can convert to marry a Cohen, but okay, right?" So we found out who converted. It was not a kosher. It was Reformed to Reform, even conservative. It wasn't at all a conversion, right? So she found out then, and she was growing. She was going to Haitian. She was we had her over at our house a few times. And she was growing on trends. She knew what the right thing was to do, and she knew that she was going to convert. And on the contrary, actually make that conversion much easier because she thought she was Jewish her whole life, right? It's a different situation, not someone just coming and saying, "Oh, I want to become Jewish," right? But she kept on pushing it off. And my father asked her once, why are you pushing it off? She says, "I don't know. I feel like I can't do this to my mother because if I convert, I'm telling my mother that her conversion was not a good conversion." Which I hear, right? Which I hear. It's a sensitivity for the mother. And again, I'm not She doesn't have any obligation to convert, so it's not like something simple. But it's something just to think about, that sometimes we don't do things that we should be doing, is because we're trying to be sensitive to someone else. Okay, we have to be sensitive to someone else, but we also have to make sure that we're following God's Torah and we're doing the right thing. So, okay, I'm being sensitive to someone else, but because I'm being sensitive, so therefore I'm not going to go to shul. I'm not going to put on my tefillin. I'm not going to eat kosher, right? Let's say someone invites you, starting to eat kosher. You're not eating pork. You're not eating sulfurs, or you're starting to eat kosher, right? You're starting to eat things only with a half turn. You go to someone invites you, go to the house, whatever it is, and they serve you something, right? And they forgot, it doesn't have a kosher symbol, whatever it is. I don't want to make them feel bad. No. Of course, you don't want to make them feel bad, but at the same time, you also have to make sure that you don't make excuses to not do the right thing. And that's more of an example, a practical example, and something that comes up often. Well, we can't be a lavan, which dresses things up that it's the right thing, right? When it's actually not doing the right thing, right? And that's something important for us to reflect, not to dress things up and say, no, it's for this, it's for that, it's really the right thing. We have to dig down and say, really, what is the right thing, what's the wrong thing? Of course, we have to care about other people. Of course, we have to do what our customs are. Of course, we have to do that, but as long as they fit with the Torah doesn't have to fit into that. They have to fit into the Torah. Okay, let's move on. We have a few more minutes. It says so then it says that he married Rachel right away, and then it speaks about Leah's children. Right, she had first Reuven, right, and then Shimon, and then Levi, and then Yehuda. Right, she had 4 children. Right, we know Yehuda's name is from Hodah, and I would encourage you to go and read through the names. Each one represents something else. We don't have time to go through that right now. Right, Hodah, she was thankful. Right, the commentaries say what she wasn't thankful for the other ones. Like, why didn't she call the first kid Yehuda? What, she wasn't thankful to have a kid. So one of the famous answers is that. We spoke about this a little bit last. I think we touched this last week. Maybe not. Right? That she was thankful even for something that seemed to be a natural thing. Right? Giving birth. Okay, Rachel was having a hard time, but she was giving birth. Okay, of course we were thankful. Yes, thank you, Hashem. Right? We say thank you. But after the 4th kid, she had a special hodah, a special thank you, recognizing and realizing that it's not a simple thing. Right? Of course we say thank you, but to really internalize it, to really mean it, to really realize that we're breathing and we're walking and we're talking and we're able to drive in a car, we're able to, every aspect of our lives, we have to be thankful to God, not just for the thing that's like, whoa, I won the lottery, okay, whoa, I got this job, I got into the school, whatever it is, or something big. Right? For every aspect of our lives, even after having 4 kids, right? Okay, I'm someone that, Baruch Hashem, I'm not barren, I'm able to have kids. No, that is still a miracle. Right? That even after the 4th kid, that's a miracle, and that's was the extra special hodah that she gave. Right? Rachel saw that she wasn't able to have kids, right? And then she has a whole discussion. She gave her maidservant, right? She had a discussion with Yaakov. She gave her maidservant. She had 2 kids, and Leah stopped from giving birth, so she gave her maidservant. She had 2 kids, right? And then Dinah was born, right? And we're just running through this, right? Leah then had 2 more kids after that. She had 6 kids. So where are we holding now? We had Leah has 6 kids. Rachel's maidservant has 2. Leah's maidservant has 2. So we're up to 10. Right? We're up to 10 kids. Right? Then it says that she. Then it says Vatar Acha Yalda Bas V'Ikra Shema Dina on page 156. Afterwards, verse 21. Right, so page 156, verse 21. It says V'Achar, and after Yalda Bas, she gave birth to a daughter, and she called her Dina. So the commentaries say that really, right? Really, this was supposed to be another boy, and she knew that she was, even without ultrasound, she knew that she was having a boy, right? But Dinah prayed to God and said, if I have another boy, that's going to be boy 11, and then my sister is going to have even less children, less of the 12 tribes, because they knew that there was going to be 12 tribes. They had a prophecy. They knew there was going to be 12 tribes. And then my sister would have less, only one of the 12 tribes, less than the maidservants even, right? So God, please make it into a girl. Right, and God made a miracle and turned it into a girl, right? And therefore, right, she called him, and that's what it says that Yalda Bas, she gave birth to a daughter, The Midrash tells us that they had many daughters. Every tribe was married. No, this was specific because this was supposed to be a boy and turned into a boy. But again, we see this same idea of thinking about someone else. Oh, I'm going to have another 12 of the tribes, right? They wanted to have the tribes, but she was thinking of her sister, of her feelings of her sister, right? That she would have less than her other siblings. And then it says that Rachel, finally God listened to Rachel, right? And she had a kid, and she called him Yosef, right? And then after that, right, we're going to skip a little bit, right? Let's go to, and then the next part is speaking about how then after that speaks about how Yaakov worked for Lavan, and he worked for himself. He finally finishes 14 years, the 7-7, and goes with the cattle and the back and the forth. And this is a very mystical thing, like we spoke about last week about the wells. There's a lot of mysticism that goes into this. We don't have time this week to go into that, right, on page 158. Right, and then it says that Yaakov heard on page 160. Right, it says that Yaakov heard that the children of Lavan were saying that Yaakov is taking everything from his father. Right, again, jealousy. Right, anti-Semitism. Right, and then God tells Yaakov that it's time to go back to your father's house. So Yaakov calls Rachel and Leah. On page 160 in the bottom, it says, God spoke to me, right, and said that we should go back to my family. And he asked them, what do you think, right? And then he goes through a whole long thing, right? On page 162, verse 14. So first of all, right, we see over here already that, as very misunderstood, the Torah is very... the Torah is not sexist at all, right? We just have different roles. Over here, Yaakov, our forefather, right, is asking, not telling Rachel and Leah what they have to do, right? He's having a conversation as his wives. He's having a conversation. Said, he goes and he said, your brothers and your family is not the same as it was before. And God told me to go. Right? He could have said, God told me to go or go. He didn't say that. He said, what do you guys think? Right? So this is important to remember that when people say things, right? If you read through the Torah, you'll see that it's nothing like that. On the contrary, right? It's a partnership. Marriage is a partnership, and it's not one domaining over the other. It's just we have different roles and different jobs, and we don't have time to talk about this. But Vatan, I just want to talk about this, and we'll end. We'll sort of just wrap up, and then we'll end. All right. Vatan Rachel v'Leah v'Tamarna, and they said, Lo od lanu chelik nachal beis avinu. We have no more portion with our father anyways. And we're like strangers to our father. So let's go. So we'll go with you. All right. So Rav Moshe Feinstein and others ask. Wait a second. Rachel and Leah, we're talking about our matriarchs, right? We're talking about lofty spiritual people, right? Yaakov just told them that God told him to go. So what they should have said? God told you to go? Of course you'll go, right? What do they say? No, we feel like strangers here anyways, right? We have no portion in our father's property, so like we have nothing here anyway, so let's go. It's like, it should have just said, God told us to go. We're spiritual people. Even if we had portion, even if things were doing well here, we should go. The says Rav Moshe Feinstein something very powerful. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein that what Rachel and Leah, of course, they were going because God told them to go. When Rachel and Leah were saying that for our children and for us, when we are doing God's will, we have to try as much as possible to make it that it's not hard for us to do. Not that, a lot of Jews, we have like this mindset that we have to suffer when we do things, when we do mitzvot. Like Pesach is like we have to drive ourselves crazy. And then this and that, and Judaism is like hard, and Judaism persecution. Judaism is something that, okay, we have to do. No. Rachel and Leah were saying, of course we would go if we were doing well. But they were telling themselves and telling Yaakov that this is, God's will is always great, but this is not even hard to do because we're strangers to our father, right? We have no property here, we have nothing here, and of course we want to go with you. And Rav Moshe Feinstein was saying this famously. He said in the early 1900s, Rav Moshe Feinstein was very famous, said that when Jews in the early 90s, it was very hard to keep Shabbos. You couldn't get a lot of people got if they didn't work on Shabbos, they got let go the next day. And he said, but plenty of Jews, okay, God left down, but what would they say? Shver to zayin hayid, it's hard to be Jewish. Then Rav Moshe Feinstein, no, we can't say that. We can't say it's schwer to sein a Yid. We have to say it's geschmack to be a Yid. It's great to be a Jew, right? Okay, so it is hard, but our mentality, what we're telling our kids, because all the kids here, it's hard to be Jew. Why should I do this? Right? Why should I be Jewish? Why should I do Shabbat? Why should I do any of this if it's hard to be Jewish? He said, we learned this from Rachel and Leah. They were saying, of course, the reason why they were going, because God told them and they were going to follow their husband. But they're saying, no, this is not even a hard thing to do. It's, look, we have nothing here anyways, right? So, you know, and I think I said this once before, right? There's a family that, I read this, the family that in their sukkah they had from their parents, right? The sukkah, they had all these white papers, right, hanging in their sukkah as decorations. And people ask, what is this? Said, this is from our parents. So every time my father didn't work on Shabbat or a holiday, and they gave him a white paper, they collected it. And he said, geschmack, look, we're able to keep Shabbos, right? And they hung it up as a decoration to show how proud they were to keep Shabbos, right? How proud they were to be Jewish, right? This is an opportunity, gewaldig, right? That's how we're supposed to be, that Judaism is beautiful, Judaism is great. Yes, of course, there's hardships and things like that, and we have to go through it. But our attitude should be is we should find the way to say, but this is beautiful. Gamzu Tova, this too is for the best, right? And that's what Rachel and Leah were doing over here. That's exactly what they're doing. And then the end of just going quickly to the end of the parsha, and Yaakov got up, he took his family, right? He took all his things and he ran away when Laban was away, right? And then it says Laban found out and he ran after him, and we're skipping a lot, of course, right? And then Laban catches up to him. He sleeps that night. God tells him, don't do anything to Yaakov. The next morning, Laban says, if not for your God, I could have hurt you, but he told me not to, right? And then he asks, who stole my idols? And Rachel stole them, but Yaakov didn't know that, right? And she hid him under her camel, right? And she was trying to help her father go away from idol worshiping, right? By stealing them. It's a whole nice discussion that we could have about it. Unfortunately, we don't have time today, right? And Yaakov said, whoever has won't live, and that's one of the reasons why Rachel passed away young. And we don't have time to go into that. Right? And then they made a pact, right, that by a stone, that our family and your family, we can't pass this stone. Right? And that's sort of the end of this week's parsha. And then it says Yaakov saw angels, and he called them Machanayim. He saw the angels came to greet him and to help him go the rest of the way. And that's sort of the end of this week's Torah portion. Just sort of the theme, and there's a lot, again, we talked about a lot, and there's a lot more to talk about it, but one of the themes that we sort of were saying this week's Torah portion, right, number one is that we have to be thinking about other people, right, Rachel and Leah, right, to Rachel, Yaakov got that energy of being able to take the rock off. Leah, thinking of praying that she shouldn't have another son turn into a daughter. And even if you lose something, but thinking about other people, responsible for other people, the idea of not to lose our sensitivity for spirituality, like Yaakov, right? We have to always reflect our spirituality, be it if it's a mitzvah, be it if it's a sanctuary, be it if it's a rabbi, right? Not to lose that sensitivity, right? Those are just some of the things that we spoke about today. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. And I apologize, I'm going to have to run because I have a meeting soon. Right, so I'm going to have to run today. I apologize.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Of course.